Hi everyone! I wanted to take you through my process on needle felting a tiny sleeping cat. I thought this was pretty fun to do. Hopefully you will too. I definitely have a lot of tips and tricks that I use uh, every time I make something like this. Um, However, I don't have everything. There just wasn't enough time to outline every single thing that I do. So, let me know if you would like more like this, um, or in terms of more instructional or tips and tricks, or if you just want to see the process, stop talking to me, I don't want to hear it, that's also fine too. So, all right, here we go. Okay, let's go ahead and zoom in here. That way we can see what we're working on. We are going to go ahead and start with the head, and we're just going to do a basic spherical shape. Now, we are in a very sped up portion of the video. There's going to be a lot of that through a lot of the bigger parts of the body that might take a little bit more of my time to work on. But you guys are going to see it go by very quickly. Now, the goal here is to make a really, really dense ball. That way, once we start adding stuff on top of it, there will be less chance of major cavities to be filled in. So we're about halfway there. Let's go ahead and keep going a little bit. And once we get a pretty decently dense ball, we can go ahead and move on. So that's okay. We can work with that. So we're going to go ahead and start with the body. Now, the body, I was aiming proportionally to be about twice as long as the head, and I'm making it a little bit more bean shaped, just because that's how I like making myself sculptures. Now we're going to go ahead and attach the head to the body, and this is just going to serve as a base for us. And now we are going to be adding the color that we want our soft sculpture to be. Now, the reason that I do this is purely out of cost. So I use 100% wool roving, which I would recommend to anyone who wants to do needle felting. And when you purchase wool roving, depending on where you get it from, for the most part, the white or the ivory color, like the natural color wool, is going to be significantly less per ounce than the color. And the color, you go through so much wool roving so quickly that it really does add up after a while. Even if you're making small items such as this. So we're working on the tail right now, and I'm just making a little cylinder, and I'm curving it at the bottom. That way, looks like the cat is curving his tail a little bit. We're gonna go ahead and attach that. I left some not so worked wool on the end of it. That way it wouldn't be a huge lump on the butt. It would just kind of smoothly transition. So going back to what I said earlier about wool roving, there are a lot of places on eBay and Amazon that have starter kits that come with, a whole host of colors and they come in like little, maybe 1 ounce bags, and you get 25 or 50 colors. Those are okay. However, I found even when I began to do needle felting, it was extremely frustrating for me, because since they aren't 100% wool, you know, oh look, there's my little helper. She definitely likes it whenever I pull out the wool roving. So going back to what I was saying about the Amazon wool, I'm using wool very lightly here. The item that you receive from Amazon or eBay or, wherever, normally it's a blend, assuming that there's even any wool in there. And it just doesn't work the same way as regular wool does. Now, when I do buy my wool, I try to source it from an ethical farm or, reputable dealer that sources the wool ethically, I guess I should say. Doesn't necessarily have to be a farm, but there's a lot of places on Etsy that, you have to buy quite a bit of it, but the cost per ounce really works out to be not that much. But I would only recommend that specifically if you do plan on making a lot of soft sculptures or one really, really, really big project. But I get mine from a place locally here in the city that does source it ethically. And so we're gonna go ahead and work on the muzzle. Now, I made the face previously and was not happy with how it turned out. I made the face and the ears, and I came back to it the next day and realized that I completely hated it and decided to rip the ears off. And I went completely over the face and made the muzzle and the mouth to make it a little bit more protruding in the front, and decided to go over certain other spots again, maybe like define them a little bit more. But when you're doing soft sculptures like this and trying to make very like minute features, such as maybe a small mouth or little like slits where like the eyes would be, so like in this case we're making like a sleeping cat, so there's not going to be eyeballs there. We just want tiny slits where you would see the eye, right? And we are working on the ears right now. Like I said, I completely overhauled the ears, and they are definitely bigger than they probably should be. Maybe I'll go ahead and revisit those again in the future. However, I did like how they turned out. Another pro tip is when you're working with objects that you really need in a certain place, use sewing pins to keep them in place, and it works really well. I didn't really have much of an issue with my felting needles hitting the sewing pins. If they did, they just kind of glided right past them, and the sewing pins don't get stuck or anything because they're not hooked like felting needles are. But for tips and tricks and stuff like that, I can go over those in another video, or just as this channel progresses as a whole. So when I had mentioned doing the minute details in channels, kind of like how this mouth is pretty much exactly what I mean. So I kind of created a little channel with my needle by making it more dense in those areas so it shrunk, right? Now, I use the tiniest bit of pink to fill in those channels so it doesn't necessarily look like it was drawn on, right? It looks way more natural. My style really isn't natural. It's way more stylized and cartoony. And for a lot of stuff, I am still trying to find my style. But here we go. Here's a little bit better shot of the face. And I'm gonna go ahead and put just the tiniest bit of a dark gray in where the eye channels are, and defining the nose. We're gonna do a little bit of a 360 here. Okay, there we go. Thank you so much for following me through this little journey that we had. And yeah, go ahead and let me know if you want to see more instructional videos or more just process based videos. You know, I love doing this kind of stuff, and I love doing just overall DIY type stuff, whether it be making little art pieces. I don't know if I would call this an art piece, but maybe you get what I mean. But I also love doing like home decor type things as well, and bigger projects, such as this table that's actually sitting right next to me. I converted this into a little cat bed quite some time ago, and if I had a channel during that time, I totally would have filmed that progress. But yeah, just go ahead and let me know. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time. Bye.